You come home to a locked apartment and find a storage box moved to the center of your bedroom floor. A coworker stands a few inches too close when they talk to you. A stranger watches you from across the street every Tuesday, but never actually walks over. When faced with these minor boundary violations, we are socially conditioned to look the other way. We rationalize the behavior, convincing ourselves we forgot the box or the coworker is just awkward, all to avoid a confrontation that might seem rude or oversensitive. This creates a cognitive dissonance where we assume that as long as a person isn't being overtly violent or loud, they represent no real physical danger. But in criminological behavior, these non-violent quirks represent the first stage of a predictable three-part cycle of predatory escalation. Predators rely on this hesitation to operate invisibly. They use our politeness as a tool to measure exactly what they can get away with. Ignoring these signals provides the predator with the feedback they need to map exactly where our defenses are weakest. The cycle begins with observation and boundary testing. The predator's goal here is to establish invisible control, probing physical and social boundaries to see where a target yields. Consider the case of a tenant in an apartment complex. Her maintenance man started by using his master key to enter unannounced for phantom repairs. When she didn't stop him, he escalated to moving her personal belongings and eventually leaving notes about a cat she didn't even have, testing her tolerance for his intrusion. At an amusement park in West Virginia, a teenager faced a social version of this test. An older ride operator named Chad began waiting outside the park to walk her to her car, even on his days off. He used her desire to avoid a scene to continually force his presence on her, despite her rejections. This stage is specifically designed to bypass institutional alarms. If a victim complains to a landlord or the police at this point, the authorities often dismiss the behavior as a misunderstanding, citing a lack of physical evidence. Stage 1 thrives in the gap between a victim's intuition and a landlord's policy. It succeeds because the predator is able to normalize their presence before anyone perceives a crime. Stage 2 is triggered by a catalyst, a sudden disruption or loss of the predator's perceived control over their target. One woman spent 4 years ignoring a stalker who kept a passive distance until she shared her story on a public Reddit thread. Shattering his illusion of a private connection triggered an immediate destructive retaliation, including vandalism of her car and broken glass hidden under her doormat. For Chad the Carney, the catalyst was his victim quitting her job. Severing his daily access to her forced an escalation. He tracked her to her high school homecoming game, waiting for her off school grounds to reclaim the proximity he had lost. When a predator loses their passive control, their primary psychological response is to reassert dominance through fear. The subtlety of the first stage disappears. During stage 3, violent confrontation, the predator abandons any lingering effort to appear normal, pivoting instead toward direct physical threats. The maintenance man's escalation peaked when the tenant finally decided to move out. While she was away at class, her mother caught him actively attempting to pick the lock to the front door, his previous stealth replaced by a desperate attempt at physical entry. Chad cornered his victim at her car at night. When she locked herself inside, he physically grabbed her vehicle's mirror and lifted his shirt to reveal a knife hidden in his waistband. The stalker, who had previously only sent letters, finally breached the victim's apartment building at 4 a.m. Armed with a pocket knife, he was found creeping up the stairwell toward her door, having completely abandoned his rule of keeping his distance. Stage 3 is the inevitable destination of unaddressed boundary testing. It proves that the harmless behaviors of the first stage are simply the precursors to physical violence. Surviving this cycle leaves victims in a state of hypervigilance. They move away, buy new property, and begin double-checking every lock and scanning every rearview mirror to protect themselves from an invisible threat. This chart reflects a pattern observed in each of these cases. While the predator's aggression climbs steadily, the external response from management or law enforcement often remains inactive. In these stories, the system failed to acknowledge the threat until it became an active physical confrontation. Human intuition, that physiological gut feeling that something is wrong, is a biological survival mechanism evolved to detect these patterns. That pit in your stomach when a stranger stands too close is a physiological alarm system designed to identify the precursors of violence. The victims who survived did so by documenting the anomalies and taking concrete action. They installed dash cams to capture undeniable evidence and utilized secondary locks to bypass the master keys held by their predators. They survived because they and their neighbors trusted their own eyes over the reassurances of management. Safety requires treating minor boundary violations as actionable threats. Document the anomaly, trust your gut, and shut the door before Stage 1 has a chance to escalate.